Volkswagen may have been late to the compact SUV party when they introduced the Tiguan to the States all the way back in 2009. However, in that time frame, this SUV has overtaken the Jetta to become Volkswagen's best-selling model, so clearly the Tiguan is a very important vehicle for VW. Now, we already saw Volkswagen introduce an all-new second generation to the States back in 2018. However, the company is preparing to show us an all-new third generation for 2025. But for those of you who can't wait for the new model, this week, as you can see, VW has loaned us this fully loaded version, a 2024 SEL Premium R-Line. So for those of you who are looking for a compact SUV with a slightly more German flair and a little bit more space versus the other rivals, how does the 2024 Tiguans continue to stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling of this particular 2024 Tiguan SEL, let me go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, unlike some competitors where they offer several different choices of engines, Volkswagen makes it simple here in the US by just offering one engine. It's the company's tried and true signature 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Now, for those of you who really know Volkswagens, you'll know that the internal engine code for this vehicle is known as EA888. It's a 2-liter turbocharged direct injection 4-cylinder that makes 184 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque. This engine shares obviously some components and parts with the motor that you find in the Volkswagen GTI and the GLI. However, the company did detune the engine significantly compared to the 241 that you get in the GTI. It all goes out through an 8-speed torque converter automatic. So no dual clutch in this model here. VW went with the 8-speed auto for smoothness and of course fuel efficiency. And all Tiguans come standard with front-wheel drive. All-wheel drive, 4Motion all-wheel drive is a $1,500 upcharge, except on the SEL Premium R-Line where it is standard equipment. Fuel economy is rated at 22 in the city, 29 on the highway. That's on regular gas. It has a 16-gallon fuel tank, so you're looking at around 400 miles of range on a full tank, which is actually pretty decent. The company doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time, but we've seen the magazine say it around 9 seconds, so this is on the slow end. We'll test it with our own equipment and see what we can get in the real world. This vehicle has a top speed of around 125 miles an hour. The Tiguan can tow up to 1,500 pounds, so towing is definitely a weak spot for this current generation Tiguan. And as this car sits, because it is heavier and bigger, or because it's bigger than its rivals, this vehicle weighs in at just over 4,000 pounds. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and take a look at the exterior styling, which VW gave the Tiguan a pretty significant refresh back in 2022. This generation, like I said earlier, has been out since 2018. And I have to say, this SEL Premium R-Line in this specific color, it's called Atlantic Blue Metallic. It's actually a free color. This dark blue is absolutely gorgeous. I love the metallic fleck in it. I love the new front fascia that Volkswagen added. You can see the headlights. These are the upgraded premium IQ light LEDs, which are adaptive with LED daytime running lights and turn signals, LED low and high beams as well. This headlight is unique to the SEL Premium R-Line. The other trims will have a reflector as opposed to the projector style. And then you can see the grille with the chrome accents, the R-Line badging in the grille, and you also have that LED light bar that connects or that goes across the grille, although the VW logo is not illuminated like you find in the new Atlas. That illuminated light bar is only on the R-Line specific models, along with this more aggressive front bumper with the piano black, the chrome accents. There are some functional openings, some non-functional openings. You have integrated parking sensors. You have a front camera system with a 360 camera. And overall, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of the design. I think the Tiguan is still one of the most sleek looking and premium looking SUVs in the compact segment. And it really has aged extremely well. The 2025 model, which the company revealed in Europe already, looks essentially similar to this, but with a more boxier shape. Remember, however, in the US, Volkswagen only offers it in the long wheelbase version. So this one here is the long wheelbase. In Europe, they've only shown the short wheelbase model. So at 109.9 inches long in the wheelbase and 186 inches long overall, the Tiguan is around 4 to 6 inches longer than most of its rivals. And that's what gives this car the extra space and the availability of a third row. For those of you who go for a front drive model, you can see the wheels gorgeous on this R-Line version. You can see they're a 20-inch wheel with a machine and black inner two-tone or inner spoke two-tone look. You have a 13.4-inch rotor at the front, an 11.8-inch rotor at the back. These tires are also big. They're a 255 by 40 R20-inch tire. I would have loved to see the brake rotors also painted blue to match like the exterior color. All Tiguans have around 7.6 inches of ground clearance with an all-independent suspension. No adaptive dampers, however. You can see the wheel arch trim here is non-painted, which I would have really liked to see the R-Line models get painted wheel arch trim to kind of give it that sleek full paint finish look. But overall, VW does offer, or they did offer in Europe, a Tiguan R, which has basically the motor from the Golf R. Sadly, that never made its way stateside. You can see there's the R logo here, but again, this is just a sport-looking trim package. It's actually not, it doesn't add any performance upgrades. Mirrors are power folding with integrated turn signals. They're body colored. You can see there's chrome along the window trim, along the roof rails, and you have a panoramic sunroof, which definitely vents to let in air and light, and it definitely gives the cabin a more airy feel to it. And then looking at the profile here, you can see I've always loved the boxy shape of the Tiguan. So again, I think the design of this vehicle has aged extremely well. Now looking at the rear of the car, the rear refresh was definitely a more subtle treatment versus the front back in 2022. You can see there is a very small subtle rear spoiler. You have your rear wiper obviously over there. The taillights are full LED design with integrated LED turn signals. The Tiguan badging here definitely got larger when they refreshed the car, and you can see there's a 4Motion badge to show you have all-wheel drive. The quad-looking exhaust tips are fake. VW and Audi have been notorious for putting fake trim pieces. The actual exhaust is located underneath the rear of the bumper. So that's just a trim piece. But again, it definitely gives this car a sportier look, even though it's not actually real. And then looking at the cargo area, this is where the Tiguan's bigger size definitely gives you more space, because as you can see, without the third row seats, you do get one of the bigger cargo areas in the class. Just under 38 cubic feet of total storage space back here, which again is very, very usable. The seats do recline. They do slide forward and back, I believe. And you also have some storage to the side. And then if you look underneath here, you can see there is a temporary spare tire. With the jack and all the tools that you need. And the other great thing is the floor. You can actually lower the cargo floor if you'd like, to kind of give you two different levels of storage. So if I put that down, you can see it gives me a slightly lower floor that increases the cargo space. And if you fold down the rear seat, or the second row seat, Volkswagen says it expands it out to just under 74 cubic feet of space. Again, which is on the top end. If you guys go for a front drive model with the third row seat, the cargo capacity, the max cargo capacity drops to around 65 cubic feet, which is still good. But again, the two row models are going to give you best in class, near best in class storage space. So on the outside, the Tiguan continues to be one of the better looking SUVs in the class, in my opinion, but what about the interior? Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is technically the older Volkswagen key. It is a flat black plastic design in terms of the key. It's a nice size, but it definitely feels a little bit on the cheaper end. VW has a new key that they introduced on their newer models, which I suspect the new Tiguan will eventually adopt. You can see there are buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, and you also have remote start from the fob. You can also activate the panic function, and if you have access to the My Volkswagen app, you can also remotely access the vehicle through your smartphone. Now, as I approach the door handle, you can see traditional door handle instead of those pop-out style ones. If you push that button, you can see that locks the doors. It also folds the mirrors in. VW does not offer an auto walk-away lock or unlock function. So as I approach the vehicle, I actually have to touch the button again, and that will unlock the car for you. Now, my particular test car has a great color combination with the Atlantic blue on the outside and the storm gray Titan leather, or storm gray leather. This is the real leather that you get instead of the fake leather on the lower trims with the SEL Premium. You can see the seats, they look fantastic. They're heated and ventilated. They adjust in 10 different ways, and they come with a 3-person memory on the driver's side. I love the contrasting stitching and piping, the perforation. The seats themselves, they look good, but again, these are not the full R seats that you get in like something like the Tiguan R that they offered in other markets. Now, in terms of the door panel materials, you can see there's a soft touch injection molded plastic. There's some LED ambient lighting, some fake wood-looking grain trim, some fake alloy trim, silver trim, or actually that's an aluminum trim for the door handle, which is nice. Padded, of course, here with more of that stitching. Window controls are one touch up and down for all four. Your mirror controls are here. Hard plastic over here, but it's lined in felt in that little storage area there. And then my test car also has the 9-speaker Fender premium sound system, which sounds good if you're an audiophile. The R-Line also adds the aluminum kick plate there and the sport alloy pedals along with the flat bottom wheel with the R badging on it, which definitely gives it a sportier vibe. Now, getting inside with that 7.7 inches of ground clearance, the Tiguan has a really nice, easy step-in height as I close the door. It also has a nice solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on the same MQB architecture as the Volkswagen Golf, GTI, and a lot of other VW products. Now, starting the vehicle up, the start-stop button is down here by the shifter. And this vehicle is not a mild hybrid or hybrid, so it has a very traditional starter noise. And you can see it has the usual Volkswagen chimes. And then in terms of the tech, you can see this is where the interior of the Tiguan is starting to look a little dated. But for those of you who don't like an overwhelming amount of tech, you're going to really like the 8-inch touchscreen that you get here. This is the not the latest version of Volkswagen software, In fact, the company has a screen that's roughly twice this size in the new Volkswagen ID.7, which will be coming to the 2025 Tiguan. And then the SEL Premium also gives you the 10.25-inch digital cockpit instrument panel. So that's basically VW's dumbed-down version of Audi's virtual cockpit. But you can see you can actually put your GPS function in there. You can push this view button here and give you a full map display, or you can go to kind of this interesting tiled display or go to the traditional 2-dial look. I prefer that look, and you can also kind of put different information there from your driving data to your vehicle status to your phone and your audio information. So that's personally my favorite look right there. It's very traditional, but it also looks modern. No heads-up display is available on the Tiguan, sadly. Maybe the new version will have that. You can see the dashboard has this soft touch injection molded plastic, which is nice. Like the storage area they get over here, you have more of that fake wood trim on the dash here, but it just looks very nice as it flows from the door panels into the dash. I also like the traditional dash vents. You have a volume knob here, and then the touchscreen here, you can see it's an 8-inch touchscreen, part of their MIB3 generation software, which you can see my phone is connected via wireless CarPlay. It also has wireless Android Auto. The screen itself, it has some touch-sensitive buttons with some actual knobs. You can see the response of the screen is pretty good. It's quick and snappy. It just is definitely looking small. And if you guys go for the base S trim, you have an even smaller 6.5-inch touchscreen. So again, you can get a much larger screen, like up to 12.3 inches in competitors. I imagine the next generation, which VW has already shown, will have the 12.3 as standard, and then perhaps the 15-inch touchscreen as an option. So overall, this is definitely, you know, easy to use and very approachable. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera with trajectory, with front and rear parking sensors, which you can also go to a top-down 360 view. That's included with this top trim. The quality and resolution isn't wonderful, so that's something where the Tiguan, again, is starting to show its age in the tech department. Going to the embedded GPS, you can see, going to the map display here, which I'm having trouble pulling up the map, going to map there. For some reason, the map won't show up, but again, most of you probably won't use embedded GPS anyways. You'll just be using the CarPlay function and using your phone there. Now, down here you can see there's a touch-sensitive panel for the dual-zone climate control. That was new back in 2022. You can see this test car here has heated and ventilated seats. The SEL Premium is the only trim to get you that. The touch-sensitive panels aren't wonderful. They don't have haptic feedback, but again, once you get used to them, they work fine. But I'll be curious to see what Volkswagen does for the next generation. Your wireless phone charging pad is here, which perfectly fits my iPhone 14 Pro Max nicely. This shifter here controls the 8-speed automatic transmission. It also has a sport mode and a manual mode. You can also not use the paddles. For some reason, I thought this car had paddles, but no paddles on the wheel, which is funny because I figured the R-Line version would have paddle shifters. Down here, you can see this rotary dial controls basically your drive modes for, you can go to like an off-road drive mode, and you can also go to your different drive modes for snow, for sport, custom, and eco. So we'll try out those drive modes later on during the driving scene. I like how it's a big dial that's relatively easy to use. Cup holders are here with additional storage. You have sturdy components here for the center console. It's all hard touch plastic here, but again, soft touch here, which is nice. This armrest doesn't move or adjust, which that used to be something Volkswagens are known for. It's nice and padded at least. Open that up, you can see it has a decent amount of storage in there. No power outlets in there. Your power outlets, which are 2 USB-Cs, are down there, along with a 12-volt. The seats, like I said earlier, they look good and they're comfortable and supportive. You have a 10-way power on the driver's side, and on the passenger side here, it's also a 10-way, although there is no lumbar support on the passenger side, so kind of keep that in mind. The glove compartment, you can see, is big. It's a bin style. It's damped but not lined with felt. So again, good storage over there. Above me, you can see cloth material for the headliner. You have a big, massive panoramic glass roof, which you can see goes all the way back into the second row. You can also vent this open to let in air, which is definitely nice. Some competitors, they give you a panoramic roof, but they don't actually allow you to vent it open. So that's a great touch. But overall, you can see the interior definitely feels a little bit more premium than some of its rivals. It just feels a little dated in terms of the tech. You have good visibility, and you also have more interior space, which I think a lot of people are going to appreciate when you're looking at the compact SUV segment. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat area, because this is where the big size of the Tiguan also plays into this car's favor. As I open the door, you can see the door opens in a pretty large amount, so you can easily get stuff back here. You can see the rear seat obviously only comes with a bench. You can get this car with a third row, but only if you go for a front-wheel drive version, so this trim is not available with a third row. But the company says you have around 38.7 inches of legroom, which is a good 2 to 4 inches more than some of its rivals. You can see material quality back here, sadly, is hard-touch plastic, but it's the back seat area. I kind of expected that. You do have some nice leather stitching over here where the armrest pad is, aluminum accented door handles, storage pocket, and there's also a felt material in there, which is nice. These seats also do fold down, so you can fold them down entirely, and you can see they do offer, I believe, a recline function. So they offer a slight recline, and you can also slide the seats forward and back. So once I get back here, you can see, let me shut the door. This is where I'd have the seat to drive. Plenty of leg room. I can literally stretch out here and kind of cross my legs and get comfortable. And then, like I said earlier, you can actually move the seat all the way back there. So this is with it all the way back. I mean, check out the legroom space, guys. This is insane. And if I want, I can slide the seat forward, which isn't really necessary if you don't have the third row. That feature is there as part of the third row on the other trims. But you can see the floor is not completely flat here. There is a hump for the drive shaft tunnel. You have rear seat air vents. No rear seat climate, but you do have USB charging ports and a power outlet here. No heated rear seats, which I'm a little surprised to not see on this top trim. You have 2 storage cubbies here, and then you can see fold down this armrest, and it gives you 2 cup holders. So overall, the backseat space is definitely comfortable. Headroom space is also pretty good, even though the sunroof does take up a little bit of space. So for those of you who are looking for one of the bigger back seats in the class, be sure to check out this 2024 Tiguan. I think Volkswagen did it right there with this gigantic back seat. So it's been a couple years since I had a chance to spend a full week with the Volkswagen Tiguan, and while we are expecting a new generation, actually Volkswagen already revealed it in Europe a few months ago, the US debut of that in 2025 model is probably still a few months to maybe almost a year away. So if you guys can't wait for the new Tiguan, how does this current generation stack up? Well, this model that we're driving is the SEL Premium with the R-Line Sport package. That's basically, they're bundled together with all-wheel drive. In terms of the powertrain changes, Volkswagen has made none. Ever since this car debuted back in 2018, we still have a 2-liter turbo 4, making 184 horsepower, 221 pound-feet of torque. The Tiguan has been building a reputation for always being a sportier driving car, but this new generation definitely is on the slow end of the segment. So I can't remember the last time I 0 to 60 tested one, but we have it in sport mode now. We have an 8-speed automatic transmission, a torque converter automatic. We have it with 4-motion all-wheel drive. Let's go ahead and see what we can get. Definitely feels pretty soft off the line. 0 to 60 in 8.21 seconds. So 8.21 is a perfectly respectable time, although it is a lot slower than some of the competitors with their upgraded engines. I mean, if you also look at something like the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, the Hybrid RAV4 is about a half a second faster than this car. So it's a little disappointing that the Tiguan is on the slower end of the segment, considering, you know, Volkswagen's position as they tend to be offering more sportier vehicles for driving enthusiasts. This Turbo 4 has just been detuned a little too much for this car. I really think that VW should have just, you know, put the full fat version from the GTI in this car just to give it that extra power. I mean, it has the weight that it lugs around, so it could use the extra power. Let's try it here. This time I won't brake torque it, we'll just floor it. Once the tach swings above 3, that's where you can feel the turbo kick in. 8.9 there, so that was more slightly uphill. Again, not a great time. That's definitely around the slowest in the segment. I mean, I believe this time is probably comparable to the base 4-cylinder engine in the RAV4 and the turbo engine that you find in the CR-V. I believe the last CR-V hybrid that I tested was also around the 7.5-second mark. So Volkswagen has some work to do, and they definitely have addressed the power in the new generation, at least in Europe. In Europe, they're offering it with several different motors, although we're expecting the US model to get a 2-liter turbo and the plug-in hybrid powertrain. But, you know, 0 to 60 times aren't what people buy this class of vehicle for, and this is where the Tiguan definitely shines. It's built on the MQB architecture. It's got a fully independent suspension. This vehicle definitely feels sportier. I mean, check out how fast and quick the steering response is. The suspension is on the soft side. The R-Line doesn't really have anything in terms of sport-tuned suspension. It's mostly just a design, you know, thing. It looks more sporty. It has these big 20-inch wheels, but I will say that the bones of this car are good. It kind of feels a little bit like a taller and heavier GTI. When you start hustling it through the corners, you can definitely feel the extra weight. This car weighs over 4,000, just over 4,000 pounds. It's on the bigger end of the segment in terms of length, but it also feels more nimble, which is nice. The steering provides a good amount of feedback. There's good sight lines. The seats also are comfortable. I love these seats, actually. They hold you in place nicely, but the full, you know, leather that you get with this trim are definitely on the softer side. The all-wheel drive system is definitely more front-wheel drive biased, But the 8-speed automatic is definitely smooth. I kind of wish that it had the dual clutch, however, from the GTI. A 7-speed dual clutch in the GTI would definitely improve the acceleration. This transmission, however, is geared toward efficiency. It's geared toward smoothness, which obviously I can understand why Volkswagen did that. It is more along the lines of what the typical buyer in this segment is going to be, you know, looking at, you know, for importance. But let's try it again, this time not brake torquing it. Shifts at right around 6,000 RPM. 8.2, so there we go, a very consistent time. Brake torquing it makes no difference, and my 0 to 60 timer is like, I've had enough of sticking onto the windshield. But I mean, that time is average to slightly below average. I'm hoping that Volkswagen will eventually fix that for the next generation. This car should be in the under 7-second range. I mean, that's kind of what I expect from a Volkswagen, because they tend to be sportier driving cars. But you know what's weird is when you're daily driving this car, even though the 0 to 60 times aren't fast, the car actually feels really good. It feels peppy, it feels urgent, like you put your foot down and the transmission, for the most part, goes about its business quickly and smoothly. There's very little turbo lag in day-to-day driving, but at the same time, the engine feels very linear in its power delivery. It just doesn't have as much pull as I'd like it to, so it needs more horsepower, but because of that 221 pound-feet of torque, it feels strong off the line, and that's kind of what's, you know, what matters, because if you're comparing this to the base engine Toyota RAV4, this is gonna feel faster in day-to-day driving because of that low-end torque that you get from the turbo, and it also has an 8-speed auto as opposed to a CVT that you're going to find in something like the Subaru Forester, for example, or the Nissan Rogue. Although the Rogue also now has that 1.5-liter turbo 3-cylinder, which is also a pretty decent powertrain in itself. But in terms of just driving the vehicle normally, I'll switch the drive mode here into its normal setting. And the Tiguan is very comfortable. The ride is soft and comfortable. It's definitely more toward the comfort end, but it also still feels sporty when you want it to, when you really are pushing it around corners. It's also pretty quiet in here. The engine doesn't really make much noise. There's very little road and wind noise, which is nice. Visibility out of this car is good. I can see out of the front, the side, the rear nicely. Volkswagen does not offer a digital camera rearview mirror, but we do have an auto-dimming rearview mirror on this trim. And overall, the driver assistance tech, their IQ Drive full suite of driver assistance tech is now standard across the board for 2024, so that's a nice touch. Volkswagen is obviously increasing the standard equipment list. They're increasing the, you know, content in this car. And the Tiguan also feels roomy. You can see out of the vehicle really nicely, and it just feels more spacious than some of the competitors. And that's exactly the reason why, you know, Volkswagen offers only the long wheelbase version of the Tiguan in the States, because people in America love the space. They love the extra space and the room, and you can kind of spread around this car and get more comfortable. The back seat's on the bigger end. The third row seat, however, if you guys want that, you can't get that with all-wheel drive. You have to go for a front-wheel drive model, which for $1,500 extra, obviously front-wheel drive is going to cost you a little bit more, or all-wheel drive is going to cost you a little bit more, but I think for most people, they're going to want the all-wheel drive aspect. Now, in terms of fuel efficiency, in my week's worth of testing, first of all, this car has around a 16-gallon fuel tank. It's rated at 21, 28, around 24 combined. In my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 24 mpg in mixed driving. That's mostly city driving, which is not bad. Regular gas is required for this car. You don't have to put premium. That's probably one of the reasons why it has a detuned engine. On the highway, I did get it up to a little over 30 mpg, which that's pretty good as well. For a hybrid or non-hybrid vehicle, you're looking at around 400 miles of range on a full tank, which is also pretty good. So in terms of efficiency, it's about average for a non-hybrid vehicle. Obviously, if you want better efficiency, the RAV4 hybrid, the CR-V with its hybrid powertrain as well on the top trims is going to get you much better MPG. You can also look at the Tucson and the Sportage hybrid as well, although this car is kind of more sized like a Sorento hybrid in terms of the overall length. But I'll be curious to see, you know, the next generation when Volkswagen puts their plug-in hybrid powertrain in the US, because in Europe, Volkswagen has announced the plug-in hybrid to get like 62 miles of range. That's on the WLTP cycle, which could probably translate to over 40 miles in the US cycle on electric-only range, which is excellent. So that's something to get excited about. But overall, if you guys can't wait for the new Tiguan and you happen to, you know, be looking for a compact SUV that's a little bit larger, that offers, you know, that European driving experience, not necessarily in terms of quickness of acceleration, but good handling, good ride quality, premium feel overall. The Tiguan is definitely still worth a look, and it's no surprise to me that this vehicle is Volkswagen's best-selling car or SUV in the US. So with just over 76,000 units sold here in America back in 2023, like I said earlier, this vehicle is the best-selling Volkswagen in the US portfolio. Although technically, if you add up sales of the Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport, those two models equaled around 96,000 units, so they're technically the best sellers, but that's two models versus one model here for the Tiguan. So clearly this vehicle is still a very important model for VW, and after spending the day or the week driving the 2024 model, it's pretty easy to see why this continues to be a top seller. It offers more interior space versus rivals, especially in the back seat. And for those of you who need a third row, VW offers it, albeit only on front-wheel drive versions. The interior tech is probably where this Tiguan has definitely started to show its age. The 8-inch touchscreen with wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, while it is easy to use, is starting to look a little bit small and dated compared to rivals. VW has a big fix for that for the next generation, which has the big 15-inch touchscreen from the ID.7 that they just introduced. So I'll be looking forward to eventually showing you guys that when VW is ready to show off the US spec long wheelbase model. In terms of the engine, 0 to 60 just above 8 seconds is perfectly average and acceptable. Although again, for an enthusiast like me, where this car shares a platform with the hot hatch GTI, the acceleration is disappointing, but what you do get is plenty of real-world usable power. It's also smooth, it's relatively fuel efficient. The handling of this car is also on the higher end of sportiness, but it also still has a good ride quality, which is a really great combination to have. That's kind of what makes the Tiguan slightly more unique, is it looks sporty, it drives competently sporty when you don't really need to accelerate fast, and it also still gives you a good ride quality paired up with an interior that also feels slightly more upscale than some of its more mainstream rivals. Really where the Tiguan does, falter is if you want better fuel efficiency as well, because there's no electrified hybrid version, but a plug-in hybrid is coming for 2025. Again, 400 miles of range, and this current gas version is about average for other gas-powered compact SUVs. Now, if you guys are interested to purchase this vehicle, because you're gonna have to, because if you want the redesigned model, you're probably gonna have to wait almost a full year. So for those of you who can't wait, this is still definitely a great buy. And pricing for the Tiguan in the base S configuration with front-wheel drive starts at just under $29,000. 29 grand puts it a little bit on the higher end of the class in terms of base pricing. If you guys want all-wheel drive, it's gonna cost you $1,500 extra. Most of you are probably gonna go to an SE trim for around $32,000. That's the sweet spot in terms of features. There's also an SE R-Line trim that kind of gives you some of the sporty aspects of this model with black wheels as well. But you still don't get the full IQ light, full LED headlights. You get the reflector style. This SEL Premium R-Line, which only comes that way, comes standard with all-wheel drive, starts at just over $38,000 with destination charge and the, small options that it has. This one actually probably doesn't have any options at all. It comes in at just under 40 grand for a fully loaded version. Now that pricing actually sounds expensive, but if you look at a fully loaded version of the CR-V, the CX-5, and the RAV4, those can top over 40 grand. They're around 42 grand. So Volkswagen has priced this car very competitively, and it's no surprise to me that it continues to be the company's best-selling model. So I would expect the next generation to even ramp sales up even further, especially with the addition of that plug-in hybrid powertrain, which I'm very excited to see coming to the US. Well, all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2024 Volkswagen Tiguan. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.